When they were approaching Jerusalem at Bethphage and Bethany, near the Mount of Olives, he sent 2 of his disciples and said to them, "Go into the village ahead of you, and immediately as you enter it, you will find tied there a colt that has never been ridden. Untie it and bring it. If anyone says to you, 'Why are you doing this?' just say this, 'The Lord needs it, and will send it back here immediately.'" They went away and found a colt tied near a door outside in the street. And as they were untying it, some of the bystanders said to them, "What are you doing untying the colt?" And they told them what Jesus had said, and they allowed them to take it. Then they brought the colt to Jesus and threw his cloaks on it, and he sat on it. Many people spread their cloaks on the road, and others spread leafy branches that they cut in the fields. Then those who went ahead and those who followed were shouting, "Hosanna! Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our ancestor David. Hosanna in the highest heaven." Then he entered Jerusalem and went into the temple. And when he had looked around at everything, as it was already late, he went out to Bethany with the 12. Kate Bowler is a professor at Duke Divinity School. She wrote a best-selling book entitled "Everything Happens for a Reason and Other Lies I Loved." Kate was diagnosed recently at age 35 with incurable cancer. Kate and her husband have a young son named Zach. The book is her honest account of her experiences so far. In one passage, she writes of attending church on Palm Sunday. "I've been in treatment for 5 months, and now it is Palm Sunday. When we get to church, the Sunday school is closed, so we are faced with the terror of having a 2-year-old in the main Sunday service. The sanctuary is swimming with children. They spin in circles, they climb on top of each other, but mostly they hit each other with palm fronds. In Christian art, a palm frond is a symbol of martyrdom, a little reminder to the viewer that this saint has earned his or her status in blood. But at every Palm Sunday service, the only whiff of martyrdom is the sense that every child is about 3 seconds away from getting a palm frond in the eyeball. A tired volunteer still manages a smile and hands one to my 2-year-old, who is delighted. Suddenly, the organ music swells and the doors fly open and the procession has begun. It is, as all children's programming is, completely absurd and wonderful. Kate takes her son Zach forward with other parents and children in the sanctuary, and he is mesmerized by everything he sees: the vaulted ceilings, wooden beams, and window after window of colored glass. Everyone is smiling broadly. She writes, "So taken are we by the spectacle of radiant youth that nobody is looking at the hymnal. I hold Zach up a little higher so he can wave his frond in the air, and I try to smile as a few tears trickle down my cheeks. I know where Palm Sunday falls in the story of our God. Jesus is on a donkey trudging into Jerusalem, people waving their arms in the air, tattered coats thrown down before the one who marches toward his death. It is a celebration. It is a funeral procession. Holding Zach in my arms, 15 days from my next scan, I wish I knew the difference." Today is a celebration. It is also a funeral procession. You may be aware that this Sunday has 2 titles in the church calendar. It is Palm Sunday, the day of Christ's joyful entry into Jerusalem, the day of waving palm branches and excited children dancing in the aisles. It is a celebration. In most Protestant churches, the Palm Sunday parade is observed as a dress rehearsal for Easter Sunday. The second title has a much more somber tone to it. Today is also Passion Sunday. Passion refers to Christ's suffering and death. We know the end of this story. Holy Week will take a turn for the worse before the parade even hits the finish line. If Jesus enters as the triumphant new king, the religious and political authorities make sure that this is not the final word on the streets of Jerusalem. And here we observe something strange and disturbing about them and us and human nature. Fame is fragile. If celebrity doesn't live up to the crowd's expectations, the mood can quickly turn ugly. The crowd will grow fickle before the palm branches have been swept from the street. Latecomers will still be shouting Hosanna, even while others have taken up the chants of crucify him. In the end, even his closest friends will desert him out of fear, and only a few women will have the courage to remain. So today is a day of contradictions, joy and fear side by side. Crowds of supporters and a jeering mob. Holy Week, for those who embrace it fully, is an emotional roller coaster. It is a celebration. It is a funeral procession. But what we believe, and what Palm Sunday points to, is that the final word is not darkness, but light, not death, but life, not sadness, but joy. We believe this because that final word belongs to God. Winston Churchill was a British politician, statesman, and army officer. He served as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom from 1940 to 1945 and led Britain to victory in the Second World War. Often quoted, his most famous sayings include, "Success is not final, failure is not fatal, it is the courage to continue that counts. If you're going through hell, keep going." Churchill was a Christian who took his faith seriously. Before he died in 1965, Churchill planned his funeral down to the last detail. The funeral was held on January 30th, 1965, in St. Paul's Cathedral in London. The service used the Anglican liturgy and included many of the great hymns of the English language. Churchill instructed that after the benediction, a bugler stationed high in the dome of the cathedral would play taps, the traditional military signal played at the end of the day or at the end of life. After the last notes of taps echoed through the cathedral, it was quiet, And then came a surprising moment. As Churchill had instructed, another bugler was placed on the other side of the massive dome, and he played the notes of revelry, the stirring call that awakens the troops at the beginning of a new day. This was Churchill's testimony that at the end of history, the last note will not be taps, but revelry. And this is our hope as well.